next song is a worship song that is from a long time ago, but we brought it back to our church family a couple of weeks ago, and I just love this song because it's so worshipful. When we get to the part that it's just all about God's holiness, I want you guys to just be in that. Just recognize His holiness in this place today.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you.
Thank you so much for worshiping with us. You guys can have a seat.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Rally the Troops 2021. It's great to see you all here this evening, and isn't it great to enjoy a G&G carry-in dinner again? Huh? Yeah. You know, I've heard people talk about putting on weight during the COVID lockdown, and it's a good thing that we didn't do carry-ins during the lockdown, otherwise we'd all weigh 400 pounds, right? But I'm convinced that when the Apostle Paul listed the spiritual gifts in Romans 12 and 1 Corinthians 12, he must have ran out of ink before he got a chance to list the spiritual gift of cooking, because, believe me, what you guys do has been a gift and a blessing to me over the years. And how cool is it, after a year and a half, to be able to sit down and enjoy a meal together again as a family, a home-cooked meal. And I say home-cooked because all of us together, to me, this is home, okay? So let's give it up for Joyce and Rick and Renee Carnes as well. And thank them. That was just awesome. Now, on your way into the auditorium, you received a Rally the Troops booklet that will help you follow along with this evening's presentation. And we're not going to have time to cover everything in that booklet. Those are yours. And if at some point you have a question or anything of that sort, all you have to do is let us know. We'll focus on hitting some highlights here tonight. But our goal this evening was to give the G&G family kind of a mid-year update on our progress in achieving the BHAGs that we set forth at Vision Night back in January, where we're heading also as a church as we look forward into the future. Now, as always, if you have any questions about anything we cover this evening, just talk to me after this is over, schedule an appointment, or you can email either JD or I, and it's real simple. It's just Jeff or JD at goodnewsgathering.org, and we'll be happy to discuss any question that you might have. But this idea of gathering the church family together mid-year to discuss how we're doing and where we're heading comes out of, go figure, the scripture. And it actually comes out of a story from the Old Testament, book of Nehemiah. And in this book, the nation of Israel had rejected God. And as a result, the nation had been overrun by the Babylonians. Now, the capital city of Jerusalem was sacked, its walls were destroyed, and its best and brightest were taken out of the city and carried off 500 miles away to the Babylonian capital. And decade after decade, the people who were left behind, typically the poorest, the least educated is what they would leave behind. Those people had to simply eke out a meager existence among the ruins of the city. And approximately 140 years later, most of the Israelites are still gone. They're in 500 miles away. But this one Israelite by the name of Nehemiah served as the king's cupbearer, which was a position of tremendous trust in the royal court. And he begged the king for permission to return to his homeland and rebuild the wall around Jerusalem. And this was incredibly important because in those days, a city with no wall was defenseless. The inhabitants were vulnerable to marauding bandits and foreign armies. And life was very precarious in those days. Enemies could attack without warning, and the people had no protection, no defense. The king granted Nehemiah's request, and he traveled the 500 miles back to Jerusalem. And when he arrived, he inspected the walls, and they were in shambles. And so he gathers the people together, and he inspires them with this vision of Jerusalem with rebuilt walls. A city no longer weak, no longer wide open to attack. And the people pulled together and they begin this rebuilding project. But immediately they faced opposition. Chieftains in the surrounding areas feared the restoration of the Israelite capital. They preferred Jerusalem to remain weak. And so they sought to undermine the rebuilding effort, and here's how they did it. First, they ridiculed the project, claiming that the wall would be too weak to provide any protection from attack. But the more it started to build up, the more afraid they became. And so then they began to threaten to send a false report to the king that Nehemiah was trying to foment a rebellion. When that didn't work, they threatened to bring an army to demolish the wall and ravage the city. So they were threatening the people. And then finally, they plotted to assassinate Nehemiah. But he avoided the ambush that they laid for him. Instead, the Bible tells us that the people rebuilt the wall till all of it reached, notice this phrase, half its height. For the people worked with all their heart. So they got halfway through the rebuilding project. They're facing intense opposition, and the pressure and the physical labor is wearing on the people. Fear is beginning to creep in, and some are wondering whether they can finish the wall to its original height. The job's half done. Can they finish? That's the big question. And so what does Nehemiah do? In that moment, he calls the people together. He rallies the troops, and he delivers the address of his life. It's a motivational speech. It's the kind that you would see in movies like Braveheart or Robin Hood. And in Nehemiah 4:14, it tells us this. It says, "Then as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, 'Don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes.'" I mean, you can just imagine the delivery of this. Fight for your family, your home. And from that day forward until the wall was completed, half the people worked on the wall while the other half were armed guards, prepared for anything. In fact, those who carried building materials to those who were building up the wall did so with one hand, while on the other hand, they held a weapon. And Nehemiah goes on to tell us, so the wall was completed in 52 days. You have to understand, this wall was massive. And the impact of the finished product was powerful and profound. It says, when all our enemies heard about this, that the wall had been finished, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God. Everybody could tell that wall couldn't go up that fast, that quick, without the help of God. And while the mid-project Rally the Troops meeting was critical for re-envisioning and inspiring the people, at the end of the day, everyone knew it was the hand of God that carried it to completion. Well, friends, this is our mid-project rallying of the troops. As I mentioned previously, the leadership team has spent the past couple of months in fasting and prayer, seeking God's will for our church family. We believe that we are at a critical juncture in the history of our church and the world in which we live. We believe it's a pivotal time that will demand the kind of wisdom, discernment, and guidance that only God can provide, and a level of commitment and devotion that each of us individually and together as a church family must strive for. I want to thank everybody who spent the last 24 hours in our prayer and Bible reading vigil. I have to tell you, guys, there's no greater power than the power of a praying church family, armed with the truth of God's word. There's no greater power than that. And I can't begin to tell you how proud I am that this church prayed and read the Bible around the clock. When I arrived here this morning at 3 a.m., there were people leaving and people coming in. And that continued until I left at 4:30. I mean, it was amazing. But remember the words of Nehemiah. He said, "Then as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people." And tonight we have gathered the leaders, the volunteers. And fortunately, we've had some folks that are relatively new to us join us tonight as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to do just what Nehemiah did. We're going to look over our situation to kind of examine where we are and where we believe God is calling us to go. And now at this time, JD is going to come and update us on the situation with our BHAGs, the BHAGs that we set back on Vision Night.
Good evening, everybody. All right, if you have your Rally the Troops booklet in front of you, I would encourage you to open to page 5. We're going to be on page 5 for the next little while. And what you'll see on page 5 is a rundown of our organizational BHAGs that we set at the beginning of the year and unveiled for you guys at Vision Night. For those of you that have been around GNG for a while, you know what a BHAG is, but for those of you that haven't, it's short for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal, and it sounds just like it means, right? A big goal that we're shooting for that we believe will help us move in the direction of being the church that God has called us to be. And it's meant to carry us forward in our purpose. And here at GNG, we have a very clear purpose. We know exactly what we're here to do and why we're here to do it, and that is this. Our GNG purpose statement is as follows. We exist to become followers of Jesus who get, grow, give, and go. And by get, we mean get the message of Christ, also known as the gospel, and get why we do church the way we do. To grow in our relationship with Christ through spiritual disciplines and groups. To give of ourselves in service to God and to others. We're in a lesson series on that right now. And to go to the world with the message of Christ. That is why we are here. For each and every one of us to become more like that kind of follower who gets, grows, gives, and goes. And that's why on that page you'll see that each one of the BHAGs that we've got listed in there are broken down into those categories because those goals align with our purpose in important ways. So what I want to do with the next few minutes is just we're going to go bullet by bullet through each one of them. And I want to give you an update on the progress that we've made with regard to each one of these goals and in what ways we have still to push forward. So let's begin with the get. Right under the get category, you'll see that we have 2 goals. And the first one is a systematic review and upgrade of in-person and online services from next gen to adult. Right? The purpose here is very simple. The purpose of this goal is rather obvious. It's generally in our public Sunday services that people who come to GNG for the first time hear or get, in our language, the message of Christ or the gospel and get how we do church. You see, our Sunday services are when people get the message and when they get how it is we do what we do here. And so it stands to reason that we would want to make sure that our services, our Sunday morning services in particular, for every single age group from cradle to grave would be getting our very best effort with regard to our programming and our teaching. Right? It just makes sense that we would want to do the very best job we can at every level of our organization in that way. So let me talk to you a little bit about what we've accomplished so far in that. Now, for those of you that have been around GNG for a long time, you know this. We have a programming team that meets every week on Mondays to discuss the services and evaluate how we did. And this has been a long-standing tradition. We've done this for 20 years. Right? But recently, because of the advent of our streaming services, putting them online every week and everything, we've begun to add a regular evaluation of our online experience to those Monday morning discussions as well when it's pertinent. Right? So every week there's usually somebody on that team or somebody connected with that team that had to watch the service online, and lots of times we'll get feedback from them on that. It's been a helpful thing for us to evaluate what's going out online. This year we've taken the unprecedented step. This is the second thing. We've taken the unprecedented step of creating 4 lesson series that cover the basics of our class series on Sunday morning. For those of you that have been around GNG a long time, you know about our class series, the Get, Grow, Give, and Go classes, 101, 201, 301, 401. Well, we have never actually done those in a Sunday morning format. Well, you're in class 301 on Sunday mornings right now. We've been doing this all year long. We've done 101. We did that back in January. We did 201 back in May. We're in 301 now here in June, and we'll do 401 in September, I believe is what Dad said. And in effect, the thing is, we know that if you haven't gone through the class series here at GNG yet, that there's important pieces of our mindset and philosophy that you're missing. And so what we've decided to do is just simply produce them on Sunday morning for you guys. We have never done that before. And one of the cool things that's happened this year is we've had a number of people write to us and say, hey, I've basically completed the class series, or 101 and 201 so far this year for the first time. And so we had 54 people indicate on a Connect card that they completed class 101, which was awesome, right? 54 people in the normal way that we would have done classes, which is after Sunday services in the afternoons on Sundays. It probably would have taken us years, matter of fact, to be quite honest with you, with the rate of attendance we had at those classes to reach that many people going through class 101. So that's awesome. Recently, 37 of you indicated at the end of the 201 series that you had completed all of those series. So that's another phenomenal number. That's huge for us, guys. Especially for those folks that had never completed the class series before. This is a big deal for us. Finally, under this kind of programming heading and improving our in-person services and online services, a team of leaders serving in our K to 5th grade area has begun meeting on a monthly basis to actively review and program the lesson series for the upcoming K to 5th grade area. It's effectively a programming team like we have on Monday nights for the main service for the K to 5th grade area over there. And that team's been meeting for several months, working on improving the quality and experience for our kids as they receive their lessons and the Sunday morning experience. So that team will continue to work together and improve that area going forward. Those are the things that we have accomplished so far with regard to this goal this year. What we're still planning to do, all right, as it pertains to this particular goal, one of the things that we have planned for later in the year, and we actually scheduled this for later in the year, we did not intend to do it up to this point, so we're not behind schedule on this. What we're going to do is we're going to create a focus group of sorts from some of the members of our church family. And the point of this focus group will be to do kind of evaluation of our Sunday services and online teaching experiences like Digging Deeper, the Tuesday prayer time, etc. And the idea is simply this, that we will receive helpful feedback from that group of people on how we can improve the quality and delivery of those services and teaching experiences, and give us unique ideas on how we can effectively leverage our in-person and online experiences for effective teaching and social gathering. And so we're really excited about that, and we'll get to that later on in the year. The second goal in the GET category there that you see on your paper is this: to improve and streamline communication and registration for guests, children, volunteers, and special events. Now, guys, the reality is with most organizations, effective communication between the staff and the ministry leaders and the congregation is one of the most challenging aspects of doing church work. People's communication preferences, social media use, and loads of other factors play into whether or not you know about what's going on here at GNG, right? It's not uncommon for me to have a very highly connected, well-placed volunteer to come up to me, I didn't know this was going on, right? That happens, all right? And we want to eliminate that to the very best of our ability, but the reality is that happens. Communication balls drop. And we want to do better with that. We entered this year knowing that we needed to do a better job of communicating with all of you and ensuring that you have the necessary access to the information that you need. We believe that if we do a better job communicating with you, that you'll be more likely to get involved. And so here's what we've accomplished, and this has been a huge success for us so far this year. The single biggest change in this area has occurred with the creation of what we're calling the Get Connected Hub out in the atrium. If you've been here on a Sunday morning, you've seen it. The idea of the Get Connected Hub was simple. give all of you a place you could go and people you could engage with, connect with, to get information and to access opportunities to get involved here at GNG. So what we did is we combined the Welcome Center, the G Kids check-in, events, signups, and the Haiti sponsorship and extension table into one ministry that we're calling the Get Connected team, and we put them in one convenient place out in the middle of the atrium. The idea was that by doing so, you would have access to all of the available information that you might want to have at any point in time. And you can go to that place and get connected rather than running to 4 different spots in the atrium. And this team has been a big boost to GNG over the last several weeks since we launched it. We launched it at Easter, and it has been a massive, massive success. We've had a number of first-time guests sign up saying, hey, I'm here, I'm a first-time guest. And that rate of first-time guests has really shot up since we started doing the Get Connected Hub. And Jenny Hiltebrand and her team, the yellow shirt army out there, have been doing a fantastic job getting you guys connected. We've had loads of sign-ups, people connecting with things, downloading the app. It's been a phenomenal success for us. And we really want to celebrate that tonight, because that team and Jenny and Emma and all the people that had a hand in putting that together, the staff here, have just done a fabulous job. Another important achievement in this particular area came a couple of months ago when Adam Geringer leveraged his tech and design skills to massively update and revise our GNG app. Some of you have downloaded it since he revised it, and it's much more user-friendly and really, really nice looking. If you haven't downloaded the GNG app, I would encourage you to do that. It's drastically improved, and it's chock full of up-to-date information about events, groups, all of our recent video uploads, and you can even give to GNG right through the app. So if you don't have that yet, go out there to your app store and get it. Now, as it pertains to communication, there are a few things that we still have left to do that we started out this year wanting to accomplish. And those are as follows. We intend to do a systematic review and revision of our website. We understand that there's some elements of our website that are confusing, a little out of date, could be improved upon, and so we're going to do some review and revision of that, and we're hoping to make some significant changes to that in the coming months. We also want to continue improving our use of social media. We want to get information out to you guys in a way that can benefit you through the social platforms, whether it's information about upcoming events or content designed to help you deepen your faith. We're doing that stuff now, but we want to continue improving what we do and be better stewards of our online platforms. So that's something that we'll continue to address as the year continues. Now, let's jump to the second category, which is grow. Right? Grow means to develop spiritually in our individual and church as a whole relationship with Christ. And in this category, we've had several goals, and they break down into 3 major areas. The first is staff roles, secondly, life groups, and the third, building reconfiguration. Now, with regard to staffing, our goal in this grow area was the creation of a discipleship pastor role and the G-Kids director roles. Now, the goal here, right, was to simply help us improve our ability for all of us here at GNG to grow in our relationship with Christ by emphasizing discipleship. In other words, we believe that groups of Christians growing together, families, individuals growing together, is the best way for people to become more like Jesus. Right? Intentional relationships designed to challenge us to be more like Christ in our everyday lives. Right? That is what discipleship means. It means to take a person from where they are and help them become more like Christ. And we believe here at GNG that as we looked at our staffing situation, we had never thrown staff level resources behind life groups or discipleship. We've had volunteer leaders over that area. We've had generous people with their time and talent and energy giving themselves to being life group leaders. But we have never actually funded life groups with staff level resources. And we wanted to change that. Furthermore, we believe at GNG that the teaching and training of our youngest GNG family members is critical to the ongoing growth and strengthening of GNG as a whole. So in addition to the discipleship pastor role, we also created a G-Kids director position that we wanted to hire earlier this year, which leads us to what we've accomplished so far. And that is, back in February, after a good interview process involving several internal candidates, we hired Clarissa Fitzpatrick to begin working as our G-Kids director. She's since jumped in with both feet. She's taken on a lot of responsibility in that area, and we're really excited to have her and proud of the work that she is doing. So we're really excited and we're grateful. That was a big task to complete. As you guys know, an interview, if you've ever been in a hiring position, an interview process is a long, challenging, exhausting thing. And to get to the end and have a candidate from inside GNG as effective as Clarissa was a really, really big achievement for us. Coinciding with that, we also created a discipleship pastor job description, and Dad's going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. So that goal is actually completed, right? Just done. We're done with that one. So excited about that. And so the staffing element of this is complete. Now, the second set of goals that we had in the grow category, I'm going to take as a group. Right, I'm just going to splash them up on the screen. And they all center around life groups. We believe that life groups are one of the very best ways for individuals and couples and families to grow in their faith. And as a result, we set several important BHAGs for this year regarding life groups. First and foremost, a systematic review of our life group system. We just wanted to stop, take a little time, and assess what was going on in our life groups. Secondly, design life groups and life group leader expectations. And finally, provide training for our life group leaders. You see, the purpose of this goal, very simply, was to take an honest look at where we're at with life groups. And the reality is, and we talked about this on Vision Night, so I don't want to belabor the point, but the reality is nearly 2/3 of the people who call GNG their church home are not involved in a life group, right? Somewhere in the neighborhood of like 62% of all GNG's family members are not connected with a life group as of our last congregational survey. And we really, really want to change that number, because we believe that's a lot of growth opportunities that people are missing. But at the same time, we also realize that organizationally, we've not done a good job of setting life group and life group leader expectations. All right, we've allowed people to get together, and we've given them opportunities, and we've done all that kind of stuff. But the reality is we haven't done a good job of saying, hey, life group leaders, this is what you're actually supposed to do when you get your groups together, right? Seems like it would be a helpful thing to give people, right? And we want to do a better job of that. Nor have we done a good job of just training those leaders over time. And so we want to do a better job of that moving forward. So here's what we've accomplished so far with regard to this goal. Earlier this year, Adam began to connect with our life group leaders, and we've gotten a ton of their life group information into our Planning Center Groups app. And this is cool because what it allows us to do is put that information onto our Church Center page, and people are able to go out to the Get Connected hub or jump onto their app and look at our groups individually. And you can do that from the privacy of your own home, or you can go out to the Get Connected hub and you can say, hey, I want some information on groups. And within 30 seconds, you can be scrolling through the different groups that we have and identifying which groups might be effective and helpful to you. And so that was a huge, huge blessing to us to be able to get all of that information out there online and put it in front of you guys in a way that will allow you to self-select groups. So this has been a big plus for us, and we're really grateful that that information is out there. Also, we have begun launching into a series of trainings designed to help us learn about how we can better implement a discipleship model here at GNG. Now, I just want to say this right up front. We're not we're not ready to go into any detail about that at the moment. And the reason is we're still connecting with different models of discipleship, learning, researching. So we're not at the place where we've made a decision on kind of what route we want to go with this. But we will do that later on in the year, and we will communicate with you guys probably at the next Vision Night what we've decided to do and how we're going to launch into that. So stay tuned for more information, but just know we're actively working on that right now. Finally, let me get to what we're still planning to do in this particular category. We are close to, but have not finalized the life group and life group leader expectations. So that's something that will be rolled out to our life group leaders later on, and we will roll them out in a life group leader training. And so that's something that's still to come. Again, we're not ready to launch that yet, but we are working on it. So expect to hear more about that. Finally, the last BHAG in the Grow area was a reconfiguration of the G-Kids space. Now, the purpose here was to remove the wall between the K to 3rd and 4th and 5th grade ministries, unifying them. Now, for some of you who have been at G&G for quite a while, you'll remember that we intentionally split those ministries a number of years ago, so you may be wondering why we put them back together. Well, there were a few reasons. One, when COVID hit, our numbers of both volunteers and children really dropped, as you might have imagined. And we began leveraging our volunteer and staff to cover that entire area. And what we discovered in the process was that the ministry was able to effectively teach across the age span and also leverage some of the older kids as helpers and leaders for the younger kids. And the cool thing about that is it's beginning to implement that service mindset in even our youngest children. Right. Furthermore, the large group teaching has been ground home by breaking the kids into age-appropriate groups. So this has given them the opportunity to process applying what they've learned in an age group discussion while maintaining the energy of all those different kids running around. So it's been a good and helpful thing. For those of you that haven't gone over there, I would encourage you after the service and after the kids and parents have cleared out, you're welcome to go over there and check out the room. It's been expanded, the wall's gone, and they've got a lot more room to operate in that ministry area, and I think it's pretty cool. We tore down that wall and open up the space. It creates more room for movement, games, large group teaching, which has been an effective thing. And it began operating as one ministry, and we're seeing strong attendance in that ministry area as well. So lots of energy in that space on a weekly basis. I stopped in on it for a few seconds today and then a few weeks ago, and they're doing great work in there. And so that's an awesome thing that's happened. What we're still planning to do with that particular element is this. We're going to finalize the design for that area and build a more permanent staging structure and improvements in things like lighting and sound, et cetera. We're just still working on that part of the process. So that is still to come, but we have made some general improvements so far, and we're making headway. So that's a cool thing. Thirdly, let's jump to the give category. And here at G&G, when we say give, we mean giving of ourselves in service to God and to others. And we had one specific goal in this particular area, and that is to design and implement a volunteer HR team and provide training for those HR volunteers. Guys, the reality is churches like ours all over the country are experiencing the aftermath of COVID, right? And churches just like ours, and we, just like all of them, are struggling with volunteer numbers. All right, it's a general trend across the country. We're not special, but it's happening here. And the reality is there are certain areas that are at kind of critical concern for volunteers. And what we want to do is we want to develop a team that will help connect people with ministry opportunities. Right? The requisite necessary training in order to step into that ministry area effective. All right, our hope is not only to ensure that that each ministry has the number of volunteers that it needs to operate well, but that all of those volunteers are comfortable and confident stepping into the roles into which they're going to serve. And so here's the reality. What we've planned in this particular area and what we've still got to do are big things. All right, what we have planned, and this is what we're going to execute actually over the next 2 weeks, is a ministry fair. All right, and that ministry fair will be happening at the end of our services over the next 2 Sundays. This ministry fair will allow and they might be able to help you answer some questions about ministries in that department and the kinds of things that they do on a week in, week out basis. Our hope is that these Sunday mornings will challenge each person who's coming to GNG to consider to step up and serve in a regularly scheduled ministry area. That is our hope. With that said, there is a major goal that we're still planning to jump into later this year, and that is actually building up that volunteer HR team. Now, I want to let you know right up front, that is something, as we began the planning process for 2021 back late last year, we intentionally put at the end of the year. We knew we had the hiring process early in the year. We knew we wanted to get the Get Connected hub up and running. So we knew that the volunteer HR team was going to be a late in the year project. And so we haven't started on that, but we will, and we're going to get down to that as we move into the third and fourth quarter. So just hang in there with us on that. We haven't made too much headway in that category simply because we hadn't even scheduled to do so until later in the year. Finally, let's move to the last BHAG. And this was our go goal. And here at GNG, when we say go, we mean going into the world with the message of Christ and serving the world around us. And the purpose of this goal was simply this, to do our first annual Big Give weekend. And we accomplished that on April 16th through 18th. And the Big Give weekend was an opportunity for our church family to get back out into the community doing what we do best, which is giving of ourselves in service to God and to others. Right after a year, almost a year of, well, I guess a little over, of COVID and everybody staying in their house and nobody coming out and all that good stuff, we decided it was high time that we got back out and served our community. And boy, did we accomplish a lot. Ron Hennison and his group of volunteers created a weekend full of service projects, and they did an absolutely outstanding job getting many of you guys, so many of you guys I know were connected and involved with that project, and I'm so proud of each and every one of you. Over the course of that weekend, get this, over 200 GNG family members of all ages took to the streets of Hillsboro and completed 11 major service projects all around the city and the county. All right, that is huge. We did multiple projects at Liberty and Schaefer Parks. We did fire hydrant painting all over town, a painting project at the homeless shelter, multiple projects at the Ohio Mission Bible Training Center, and a major cleanup of the Johnson Street area in Hillsboro. And there was more that I don't have time to talk about. It was a truly excellent, excellent weekend. But not only did we do the projects, but GNG was actually featured for doing those projects on the City of Hillsboro's Facebook page for the fire hydrant painting. And we also had some of our volunteers featured in one of the local newspapers. So not only did we get out there and do what God has called us to do, but God gave us the opportunity to hopefully inspire other people and other churches to get back out into the community through the publicity we received for doing so. So our hope is that it will just be an inspiration to other people to do that. It was a great weekend of service. And this, I think, is likely a project that is here to stay. Having so many in our church family get out into the community over one weekend was awesome. And we are deeply proud of all of you who participated. Thank you, thank you, thank you for giving of yourselves to God and to others by going out into our world to serve. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Dad for more discussion.
Thanks, Jay. You know, as I indicated, in April, the leadership team began fasting and praying and meeting every other week to discuss the future of GNG in a world that is experiencing monumental changes with a rapidity that's been previously unheard of in human history. Change is happening really fast. Never before have people been more connected with more people through more avenues of electronic media, and yet never before have people felt more fragmented, more factionalized, and more alienated. The COVID-induced shutdown only magnified the growing sense of isolation that so many people were already experiencing. We live in a culture that prides itself on tolerance. You think about it, catchphrases like diversity and inclusion rule our public discourse, and yet the divisions based on gender and ethnicity and sexual preference grow deeper and more bitter with each passing day. Issues that were either extremely rare or virtually unheard of when I was growing up are now the order of the day for our next generation, like fractured families, lives devastated by drugs, the rejection of truth as absolute or even knowable if in fact truth even exists, the moral confusion of sex outside the bonds of marriage, same-sex marriage and transgenderism, the acceptance of abortion as a birth control option rather than the mass murder that it is. We live in a culture where politics is becoming the dominant religion of the masses. Government is quickly shedding its old facade as big brother, preferring instead to be viewed as God. And in the process, liberties our founding fathers fought, bled, and died for, like freedom of speech and freedom of religion, are becoming relics of a bygone age. And having jettisoned truth as absolute, we are left with a media that has absolutely no commitment to the discovery of or the communication of truth. And people are left to wonder, who can we believe? Where can the truth be found? The pandemic amplified the rising tensions between the church and the state. Government-mandated lockdowns of churches, pastors jailed for refusing to comply, and children removed from Christian parents who refused to allow them to take gender reorientation drugs are just a few examples of our society's ongoing assault on the church. Even the most trusting of souls must admit that pressure on the church is rising, and we have every reason to expect that to continue. That's just the way it is, folks. Now, the leadership team of your church is not in the habit of being naive. It doesn't take a genius to read the tea leaves. George Orwell said it this way: the further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. You see, as our society drifts further from the truth of God's word, we can expect increasing pressure to either compromise or jettison the truth. It's a time for Nehemiah's reassuring but at the same time challenging speech. Don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord, who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, your homes. Now, during this process, the leadership team has been studying a book together, and it's a book by the title, Live Not by Lies. And it has been guiding and informing our discussions about how best to position our church for effective ministry in a culture that is growing hostile toward Christianity. And for those of you that are interested, this book is actually going to form the basis for our 8-week in-depth study that will begin on Sunday evening, September the 19th, and it'll go from 6 to 8 p.m. for 8 weeks. So what have we learned? What's the leadership team been grappling with? Well, it's actually something that we've known for a long time, but we've struggled to address. As a church, we have been blessed to grow large, at least large for churches in the Highland County area. But the leadership team has wrestled with a nagging question, and that is, are we growing deep? Are we really producing Christians who possess the spiritual depth to weather the storms that now appear on our horizon? Are we developing true, rock-solid disciples of Jesus Christ? Or are we simply attracting church attenders who will jump ship at the first sign of rough seas? If some form of persecution were to come, would we stand for the faith, or would we abandon it for temporary safety? These are the kind of questions we've been grappling with. And quite frankly, we've been disappointed with the impact of COVID on our church family. I'm just going to be honest with you about that. We completely understand the decision for some to remain isolated who are immunocompromised. We understand that. But the level of fear that's been expressed by people who claim to follow a Savior who rose from the dead is troubling, to say the least. It's troubling. And those who are choosing to stay home because it's just so convenient to sit on the couch and watch it online are unlikely to get up off the couch when the heat's on. That's the truth. That's why, as JD briefly outlined earlier, the leadership team has made the decision to throw as much organizational weight as we can into developing disciples, followers of Jesus who get, grow, give, and go. In fact, over the next 21 months between now and our 25th anniversary on April 16th, 2023, we're going to be in the process of transitioning JD into the teaching pastor role and transitioning me to a role focused on discipleship development. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, the leadership team actually began this transition process all the way back in 2016. 5 years ago, we identified the fact that JD has the spiritual gift of teaching. And so each year, beginning in 2016, we gradually increased the number of times he taught to train him up for the role. We also charged him with the task of developing other worship leaders so that one day he would be able to pass the leadership baton of the band to someone else. Earlier this year, leadership of the worship band was assumed by Sherry Smith, and we're very proud of her and the job that she's been doing. Now, in 2020, JD taught 1/3 of the time. This year, over the course of this year, he will teach 1/2 of the time. And then beginning next year, about in April, he will begin to teach 2/3 of the time. And then in April 2023, on our 25th anniversary, he will take over as the teaching pastor of Good News Gathering. And I will teach on an as-needed basis. Now, I will continue to teach in-depth studies. I'll lead the Get Started group. I'll help with the class series. But my primary focus is going to shift to discipleship development. Now, some of you may be wondering, what prompted the leadership team to begin this process 5 years ago? Well, let's be honest. I'm not getting any younger, okay? When GNG celebrates its 25th anniversary, I know you guys aren't going to believe this because I look so young. I'll be 66, okay? And there are a couple of realities we have to face, okay? First, and we thought hard about these, most teachers and preachers are capable of communicating well with people from about 10 years younger to about 10 years older than they are, a 20-year age range. Nationwide, the church as a whole is losing the younger generations. And we cannot afford to allow that to happen at G&G. We can't. And so it's time that we transition to a younger teacher skilled at communicating biblical truth to a younger generation. And second, I've watched way too many churches turn gray with their pastor. Do you realize that the average church in America, the average age of the church is about 5 years younger than the lead pastor? Think about that. In 2023, the average age of our church would be about 61. Problem is, the older the average age of a church becomes, the more difficult it is for them to attract younger generations. And that's why so many churches literally die of old age. And we will not let that happen here. Now let's be realistic. And you might even want to write this on your brochure. Every pastor is an interim pastor. Okay, nobody holds this position forever. And by the time of our 25th anniversary, it'll be time for me to take on a different challenge to help G&G grow deep. Now, for years, I've tried to teach this church family a simple phrase that embodies a profound truth. In fact, I first used this phrase in 2002, okay, here at G&G. And most of you have heard it enough that you know it by heart. In fact, I said it 2 weeks ago on Memorial Day. And here's the phrase: it's not about me. It's about what's best for this church and what maximizes its effectiveness for the cause of Jesus Christ. That's the mindset we all must have if this church is going to be successful long term. Now, with JD transitioning into the teaching pastor role, that will take him out of the operations administrator role that he now holds, where he oversees all the ministries of the church. I'm not gifted in the area of administration, and so we will begin immediately a search for someone to fill that role. Now, as always, we will begin the hiring process accepting applications from within our church family. We love to raise people up from within. And we'll post a link to the job description and application details to our G&G Facebook page and our website within the coming week. So just to be clear, okay, let me quell a couple of rumors that I've already heard before they fester into facts, okay? Rumor number one: I am not retiring from the ministry. My ministry is simply shifting to discipleship development. And when you think about it, there's only one real retirement plan from serving in the church, and God hasn't exercised that option on me yet, okay? And rumor number two: Cheryl and I are not leaving G&G. I was actually asked this in the atrium 3 weeks ago. This is our home. G&G is our family. So we're not going anywhere. And besides, some of you would experience withdrawal. Cheryl didn't give you a hug every Sunday, okay? Yeah. Now, at Vision Night last January, we announced that Adam would be transitioning from his position focusing on children and youth to a discipleship pastor role. That was our intention. However, Adam has accepted a job offer from the Miamisburg Christian Church, and he will be leaving G&G on July 15th. This is bittersweet for us because we've grown to love Adam and his family during the 3 years they've been with us. It's bitter in that we've loved working with him, and he's been a real asset to our church family. But it's also sweet in that Adam is going back to a church that he and Courtney served at for several years, and he'll be serving alongside a close friend of his who is taking on the lead pastor role at that church. And so while we hate it, we understand it. Unfortunately, Adam and his family could not be here this evening due to a well-deserved and previously scheduled vacation. But he wanted all of you to know how much he has appreciated his time here at G&G. He'll be back after he gets back from vacation and I think a week of camp. He'll be back for a few weeks before July 15th rolls around. And he informed us at the very beginning of this process that he was not seeking other employment opportunities. When that staff position came open at that church, they came looking for him because of their prior relationship. And now I can imagine what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, okay, with JD transitioning to teacher pastor in 22 months and Jeff transitioning to discipleship and hiring a new operations administrator to fill JD's current role, can we still pay off our debt? Because that's always been a big issue around here. And can we fix our deteriorating parking lot? Because some of you have talked to me about that. And the answer is yes, okay? We're going to give it our very best shot. As most of you are aware, we have aggressively reduced debt since moving into the ministry center. And we've asked our ministry leaders to deliver high-quality ministry on very lean budgets, and they've consistently delivered outstanding ministry, at times on a shoestring. Our goal has been to eliminate debt as quickly as possible in order to do two things. I want to make sure everybody understands this. First of all is to limit as much as we can the payment of interest. Thus far, through aggressive debt reduction, we could save, if we pay off by our 25th anniversary, we could save nearly $250,000 in interest payments alone. Now, the second reason is this, is to free up every gift that we receive from ministry. In other words, the sooner every dollar can go into ministry rather than debt, the better, okay? And to that end, there are those in our church family who have committed to give sacrificially between now and our 25th anniversary in hopes of paying off the debt by that date. And I have to admit to you guys, for me, there's a personal reason why I've pushed so hard to get this church family out of debt. Not only does the Bible give clear warnings about debt, passages like Proverbs 22:7, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is a slave to the lender. Romans 13, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. Not only does the Bible warn us about debt, but interestingly, our founding fathers warned about debt as well. Benjamin Franklin famously said, rather go to bed supperless than rise in debt. And Thomas Jefferson said, it is immoral for one generation to pass debt to the next. Don't you wish people in Washington knew that today? You know, it's been my hope to leave the teaching pastor role debt-free so that the next generation of leaders could begin with every gift given available for ministry. In order to achieve this, we went back to the bank in January, and because of our outstanding credit history, the bank agreed to reduce the interest rate on our loan from 4.5% to 3.75%, and they locked that rate in for 5 years. It was really cool. Now, obviously, you know, just this year, we started the year owing $390-some thousand, and we're down to $356. We've already paid off $36,000 just so far this year. But I realized that paying off $356,000 between now and April 23 is a tall order. I get that. It would require a number of individuals and families making the decision to give sacrificially over the next 22 months. But I believe it can be done. Now, here's what I want to tell you. There's not going to be any hard sell. There ain't going to be a capital campaign to get this paid off. We're not going to do that. We're simply going to report in that monthly financial statement, like what you got this morning in your bulletin, this little green sheet that tells you where we are financially. It'll just list on there debt-free in 2023 and how much is left owed. That's all we're going to do. We've always asked our people, give as you feel led by God. And I hope that through your prayers, maybe you'll decide that you believe financial freedom is a goal worthy of sacrificial giving. So I hope you'll prayerfully consider that. And finally, some of you have commented on the deteriorating state of our parking lot. When we built the ministry center, you have to understand that we only had enough money to put a base coat of paving on the parking lot. We just couldn't afford to put on the top, or what they call the finish coat. We just didn't have the money back in 2012. Pavement's now 9 years old, 10, going on 10 in September, and it's showing significant wear and tear. In order to keep it from deteriorating further and increasing the cost of repair, we hope to put the finish coat on it by this fall. Unfortunately, if we let it go another year, it looks like the cost is going to really ratchet up. So we just have to be aware of that. Now, guys, I know that we've thrown a ton at you tonight. And if you'll turn to page 7 in your brochure, there on that page, I've got 5 action steps. And most of these action steps are going to sound the same because we're in the same position that Nehemiah was in. We're in a position that where if we are to accomplish what God is calling us to, it can't be done unless He's in it. And if we accomplish what He's called us to, everybody in this area around G&G is going to know it's a God thing, not a person thing or a people thing. And so let me just roll through those action steps with you. First of all, pray. Pray that the G&G family will live out its purpose. In other words, that we will become followers of Jesus who get, grow, give, and go. Pray about that, friends. Secondly, pray that the staff transitions and the hiring process will position G&G to advance the kingdom of God with greater effectiveness. Please put that to prayer. Third, pray that our discipleship initiative will help produce spiritual depth within the family, that we will grow rock solid, strong Christians. Number 4, take responsibility for my own and my family's spiritual growth. Friends, nobody can make you grow. You have to take responsibility for it. And if you have children and you are raising them in an environment that is heading away from Christianity at a very rapid pace, you better be drilling into them what it means to be a Christ follower. Because they're growing up in a world very different than I did. And it's not going to be easy. And if you have children and they're not in our youth programs, please think about that. Ask yourself, what are my priorities? Because you may need to adjust them soon. And number 5, prayerfully consider whether God is calling you to give sacrificially to make G&G debt-free in 23. Friends, I hope that you'll put these things to prayer. That you'll put these in your Bible, or you'll place them somewhere where you see these, and every day you'll think through these and pray through these. Now today, we're going to close our time together with communion, and then the band's going to come up and sing. And for those who are going to be